Hey, true believers. Chris Mack coming at you with part 29 of the Age of Apocalypse. This is X Universe number 1. So this follows our regular 616 heroes when they kind of got flung into Apocalypse's annihilation of the world. And it is an interesting take. Tragic, but interesting. So let's go ahead and jump into it. The print date on this was May 1995. And we open up on a woman. We come to find out that this is Gwen Stacy. Now, before we even go any further, like, hey, Gwen's alive, but where's MJ and all that stuff? Let's talk about who made The Last Stand. This is based on a story by Scott Liddell, Terry Cavana, script, Carlos Pacheco, penciler, Cam Smith, inker, Kevin Somers, colorist, Electric Crayon, color separations, Richard Starkings and Comic Craft, letterer. And then it says Marie Yavins, editor, Bob Harris, editor-in-chief. And what I like is, okay, you kind of get this refugee look about her. And she's saying, if her tears had not dried up for so long ago, she would weep. Not for herself, but for the world around her. She remembers when this was a golden land, a paragon of progress and tradition in the heart of Africa, guided and guarded by their sacred warrior king. Or more accurately, she remembers the fairy tale of Wakanda. And we open up and what happened? So what I like here, well, I don't like, what I find interesting in reading this is Wakanda is supposed to be like that technologically enhanced city, like super progressive, way ahead of its time. And here it just looks like a third world nation. So I kind of like the subtext here of, even though we're reading this book of death and destruction in this post-apocalyptic world, we still get a little bit of social commentary without it being too much. Like, it may feel on the nose, but it makes sense in the context of the story, so it doesn't feel preachy. Is kind of an easy way to say it. But it just breaks your heart seeing all these people war-ravaged and starving, especially this little boy who's talking about how mama's not hungry anymore and there's no more medicine. And Stacy, because she doesn't have anything else she can do, she goes, and I have nothing left but prayer for her. She just needs you now. So that's heartbreaking. And it really goes, when it hurts next, when we kind of get into the next panel of this explosion. And what this means here is we are introduced to the Apocalypse era Marauders. And here, this is Norman Osborn, Wilson Fisk, and Arcade. So different than the Marauders that we know, like Harpoon and Arclight, etc., so forth. But it's interesting how they bring in the 616 villains. I know a lot of people don't like Arcade. I find them interesting, so it's always, matter of opinion. So kind of seeing, two of the largest villains of the world, and then, of course, an assassin. It's an interesting take. Oh, and then the last one of the Marauders, Owl, which is a Avengers villain, I believe. But yeah, so that's this Marauders, and I just kind of like the way they enter, because it causes stakes and it makes you care about what's happening and why you want these slimes annihilated. That's good storytelling in that sense. And we see Fisk coming after Gwen, and I like how she's able to just handle herself. It says, painfully aware of every child's cry for help, every mother's plea for mercy, every echoing scream but her own. Stacy sets her sights on the only enemy she can. So that's great paneling right there, where she falls, she takes a moment, and then she's like, nah, I'm going to take you out, sucker. And then something happens with the rest of the Marauders. And then we see this big insect-like ship falling or coming down. And here we see Stacy looking up, and it says, something about this mechanical behemoth, the webbed Caparus, the spider mandibles, still prompts a pang somewhere she can't quite place. A bittersweet taste on the tip of her tongue. of something lost. So right there, their nod to Stacy thinking back to Peter Parker. But unlike Peter Parker, this is, where is it? The remaining survivors of the early Avengers, because remember, the Age of Apocalypse happened way back in I think it's the 50s, 40s or 50s. I think, don't quote me on that. But anyway, here we have Anthony Stark and Clint Barton. And I'm glad that Clint is rocking the little bit of the Avengers logo there. And so Stark is coming because they need someone who's in the crowd. Stacy does not trust him. And while we're talking about this, look at how, again, all the panels are not flat. They're not boring. They're dynamic. You see that Stark's basically hooked up to all this life support. So you're just like, wait a minute, what's going on? And of course, Stacy not trusting Stark, so she sticks that gun back in his face. And you find that he's here for Dr. Donald Blake. Now, if that doesn't ring a bell to anybody, when Thor was originally created, Odin created this body that Thor could possess or become to walk amongst the humans undetected as the Thunder God. And that was Donald Blake. So from what I understand in this universe, Thor was vacationing on Earth. Apocalypse took over, which made it impossible for him to get back to Mjolnir, his hammer. So he's doing what he can as a human. And that's why here it says, some see the God in this man, a healer with a sublime gift for soothing their wounds and easing their pain, the power to help all but himself. So I like how they introduced Thor into this universe, because we get him, but just not the way that we're used to. Now, the reason that we're kind of getting more, I think the reason they created X Universe is because it kind of helps flesh out the Eurasian Human High Council, because we've kind of got it in Weapon X and a little bit in the other books. But here you kind of get more of a take. And so now we start to see all these ships infiltrating Europe, and people saying that this should concern them. But in a sense, they're kind of seeing it as a salvation. And of course, here's Apocalypse's ship that we saw from X-Men Chronicles #1, still flying. Here, there's supposed to be a peace negotiations going on with the Forgotten Horseman, Mikael. Mikael is the brother of Colossus. So kind of seeing him here to work amongst the humans, you're just sort of like, oh boy. So he's called Prelate Rasputin. And he is kind of a terrifying looking dude. And so while these ships are coming in from America, we have all the Human High Council's ships kind of flying around showing a show of power with all these nuclear warheads on board. And two of the pilots that we're following are none other than Susan Storm and Ben Grimm. And so it's saying here that Sue doesn't disagree with what Ben is saying. But it says, Susan Storm has more reason than most to distrust their unseen visitors. The fading memory of her first love, Reed. The burnt corpse of her baby brother, Johnny. You're like, wait, what? What happened to Reed and Johnny here? What's going on? And plus, I just like that you kind of get to see more of what's going to happen to your other heroes that aren't just the mutants. So that's what I've always appreciated about it. Again, I remember reading these when I was younger, and I wasn't as versed in the Marvel Universe as I am now. So this didn't really hit me as it did in modern times. So, past all the ads. Here, you see this human talking with Mikael. He goes, do you think I'm stupid? Murdoch? Murdoch? Wait, what? What is Daredevil doing with Apocalypse's people? And it says, where is it? Here it is. It goes, Mikael keeps augmented humans, or flat scans otherwise. Afflicted humans elevated through his goodwill to a stature useful to him. All the more loyal for the power it brings to their pitiful lives. And here he says, try to remember exactly who gave you your second sight, Keeper. So here, Matt was blind. Mikael, I guess, was the one that gave him his power instead of him trying to save that person from the toxic truck that was flying. So it makes you kind of wonder what happened with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the Age of Apocalypse. If y'all don't know what I'm talking about, little anecdote here. The canister that created the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Kevin Eastman and Peter Liard have said that was supposed to be the same canister that blinded Matt Murdock, because they liked Daredevil and they wanted the universes to cross, but obviously for legal reasons back in the day they couldn't say that, but now they can. So it'd be kind of cool to see a Marvel crossover. Anyway, back to the story. Now, you see this explosion. Sue and Ben are just kind of like, wait a minute, what's going on? We must be ambushed. And they're attacked by a thing, as they call it. So you're just kind of like, oh boy. So we know who this is. He goes, pity the poor humans. No idea what you're truly up against. He's like, humanity's extinct, woman. An evolutionary did it at best, while I will survive. So we all know who that is. We know that's the Hulk. But they call him the Thing, which is kind of funny with Ben being in the room. So what's going on here? I want y'all to read the comic to find out. And now we see here, what's his name? Mikhail and Victor Von Doom talking. Victor is the head of the Eurasian Human High Council Security. He's the one supposed to be kind of doing the diplomacy here, because at this point, the Eurasian High Council's kind of sequestered themselves. If you want to know more about that, the book says to read Weapon X number 3. So at this point, that's where we are. But while you're thinking, oh, there might be a chance for peace, we see Murdoch back aboard the ship. And they go, the public is responding, Peacekeeper Murdoch. But we're losing the boy already. What do they mean by that? Who is this? Well, if you want to know what they mean by talking about the public getting into a fervor there, and this dude hooked up to the machine, read the book. I do not want to spoil that. All we have to say is that our heroes get aboard Mikhail's ship, and we see Ben say, yeah, real ironic. That's one way to look at it, meaning about them being aboard Mikhail's ship. So yeah, guys, X Universe number 1. Now that I've had more chance to dive into the Marvel Universe over the years, I love this book more. I didn't really care for it when I was younger because I didn't know who Gwen Stacy was. I didn't know who Victor Von Doom was. I just knew some of the names like Iron Man, and I didn't even know who Clint Barton was back in the day. But this was like when I was like 8 or 9, I think. Anyway, absolutely awesome read. Oh, one thing I do want to mention, I forgot. So at the very end, when you're reading, I don't want to give away everything. Let me find it real quick. Hang on, we'll get there. Because I don't want to spoil the book. But what I do appreciate is like some of the references they made to like Peter Parker and T'Challa. They actually give a synopsis of what happens to some of the 616 heroes. So that is really cool. I don't know if issue 2 does it, but we'll find out when we get there. So if you guys have enjoyed this book, please first and foremost support your local comic shop and pick up a copy. And if you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you could possibly know. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that fancy little Avenger bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, you guys will get notified. You can come to the channel. And as we say, we love to hear your thoughts and just talk with you all down in the comments below or on our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description below. So with all that said, hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.